Do you always wanted to create cinematic music? Like those, for example. Well, actually, it is not what my video will be actually about. I'm not going to teach you anything specific in this video, and here's the disclaimer. I'm not claiming the absolute truth in the deeper end, or that I'm some professional. No, I'm just an enthusiast, and just as many other people that wanted once to learn how to write music. And the trouble I found myself in was the lack of the structure or guidance. You just don't know what to learn or what knowledge you actually lack, so here we'll try to explain to you the one big structure I made out from my 4 years of learning commercial production. It can be pretty useful for newbies who just starting their journey and want to make music like in reference before, or already people with experience but lacking some road to go. Music is an art, but there are things that work to make it sound better. A lot of rules were written because they just work like that. First concept behind my roadmap I want to introduce you is a deconstruction. If you're an artist, you've probably already heard of such a terminology, and I personally recommend you to implement the skill of deconstruction in your whole life. You can use it for like everything, because if there's a structure, it's much more easier to move, learn, understand. I'm going to use it through all my video and more. The very first video is going to be about part writing, the composition and the MIDI itself, review, arrangement and compositional later. Okay, so here it is. The order goes like from the basics to the more advanced stuff. The main thing is to understand that from the basics you are building up another stuff, so you need a stable foundation. Perhaps there are the concept or something that you won't recognize or don't actually understand why they place it there out of the places. And this is actually good. Every person has its own view. For those who don't recognize those terms, perhaps there are things that you have to learn. If there's a confusion, perhaps you could think about it from other view. I guess the overall roadmap is pretty intuitively simple, so I have this. There won't be any problems understanding the world structure. It's overall pretty standalone. So from this part on you can start skipping the video, or check the only segments that were interesting to you. I hope this will be helpful. Okay, so the part I was recording did end, so right now I'm going to overview this map just by myself without any scenario. So the first is Ghost Like Harmony, and I guess that's the thing that helps us to shape where notes should be, their height, if you will. As you know probably in music theory, there are two types of intervals, the one that play at the same time and then goes right after, and it still counts. Motif, phrase, sentence, periods, and all that meaning that implies a stability and ABS type of structure. True, ABS and motif, phrase, sentence are not actually very connected, in my opinion. Those terms help us to make the composition, since, as you probably know, or perhaps not, period is a minimum structure in music composition. Next will be accent, sizes, plus the concept of pulse, texture, how it affects dynamics, types of voice leading. Those terms help us to actually make an order or our MIDI, well, the composition itself, but in more digital work, I guess we are using those to make our MIDI looks much more, not exactly fancy, but working. Impacts arpeggios plus additional types of patterns. Well, this is just about patterns thinking, because when you're thinking about patterns, it's much more easier to shape and create your composition. It's like building from blocks. Next will be more advanced stuff, because with all basics in the left side, you actually can make pretty working composition, MIDI itself, but with those in the right side it can sound even better. And I will start from articulation, because you can make it even in the MIDI itself, like staccato, everything like that, by changing the note velocity and changing its length. Plus, in FL Studio, for example, you can make the transition between notes that will be like legato, or kind of that. Sorry for that, I'm explaining really short and not in details. I didn't prepare for this part a lot. As I said, the table itself is pretty self-explanatory. Next will be features of writing for different instruments. That's more applied to classical part writing when you have a sheet, since there are chords that are written, I guess, like 4 half steps below. They have other scale, if I remember correctly. Besides, when you write percussion, there are also another type of writing, and it can be applied to FL Studio and other DAWs too. Because when you're writing, for example, for percussion, you're not placing notes, you're placing sounds of hits and everything like that. And actually, they're still working the left side rules, like accents, for example, because you place accents in percussion as a velocity. My overall thinking that for good bar writing and MIDI itself, you need to apply everything that is left side, like good harmony, good composition written by periods, where the main thing I guess is stability, how the more you change, make difference between phrases and motifs, sentence, the less stability and more dynamic your composition is going to have. Types of voice leading, in my opinion, is more in music theory stuff, like polyphonic and all those kinds of things. Also, the sizes can be pretty useful for creating very unique sounding of your composition. It changes a lot. Besides, you can change sizes mid-composition, but in my opinion, the first and more important thing is harmony. I mean, with that, you have rules and boundaries that you can change according to the rules. As for modulation and alteration, this is more advanced stuff, but you have to learn it, especially when you're trying to go off your scale. Like, for example, implementing chord from another scale. You can see that a lot in popular Japanese music, I guess. I want you to actually analyze other compositions according to all that kinds of things, and I'm going to show it later. As for embellishments, this is, I guess, the most important thing to make it sound fancy. Like arpeggios comes from embellishment. It's like kind of embellishment. And there are also other ones that make it sound really fancy. I guess M2U uses them a lot. And let's make quick overview how it goes. So first you're writing the height of the notes. Like in this part you're just learning how to actually create blocks of notes, how they intersect, how their relationship, and everything like that. You're learning the rules. Next, you making it in the time, how it works inside one big structure. Next, you're making it much more detailed. Not exactly detailed, but if you know all those terms, you can make the sentence for yourself. Next, it's much more like a gimmick, I guess, like a tool. Out myself, I could add that there are also quicks like up and down notes. Well, it's not actually a pattern, I guess, but you can see this a lot in hardcore and Azali type of style, where, for example, chords are breaking down in letters. This is still an arpeggio, but I guess it's a more specific pattern in those kind of compositions. Just my thoughts. And the rest, Syncopation and version also are very important when it comes to writing. So you have really tried to implement those, and you will see very interesting results. But you will see all of them in the music theory, anyways, if you're going to learn it. Because I will be honest, just on music guides on the YouTube, you are probably not going to get all of those. And this is why YouTube videos or guides don't actually usually try to teach you academic stuff like those that are being taught in music schools and all higher educational stuff. So now I will give my little thoughts about what else you have to learn, and then we're going to step to the analysis and little writing section. Okay, so there's a little addition to my table before, roadmap. There are the things I wanted to pinpoint, but without using the whole, structure roadmap. So I said there are things that you could learn, for example, if you didn't, or anything like that. So, cadences help you to make the listener expectations, shape them, and this is a tool that helps you to determine what next chord progression you could use inside of composition, or perhaps you could modulate and everything like that. Cadences are more advanced stuff. It's like harmonic, but it's very useful to learn, especially when you're going to for more like professional writing. As for the ways of deconstruction composition, it can be like just notes or blocks of composition like phrases, motifs, sentences. You can just place any music and check how it changes per motifs, periods. Mostly it will be for periods. In more dynamic composition, you will notice probably that even phrases can be pretty different. The table is self-explanatory, just as previous one. You can just implement this as you want. The only thing I would want to talk about is the last one, about how different types of patterns gives you different feelings. And as you probably know, that's all that's kind about major gives you the happy vibe and everything like that. I'm not really believe in that. Everything depends more like on the whole structure of the course and also you're using, because you will get one frequency in the end. But it's still applying for texture, because the more dense your voicing is going to be, the more tension it will give, and that really helps you to create very majestic composition, because it's really when you're using, for example, very big space between notes, it can give really airy style, freedom like feeling. I use it a lot in my compositions, along with ladders. You can see like everything in Arcore. Arpeggios are the main object in Arcore, I guess, just like the block chords in Techno styles. Actually, I know that not every composition is going to use those. So you can just look on this table and think for yourself what you want to use and what note. True, I still want you to just take in the notes the things I mentioned here. Also, the translation can be not exactly be correct. Like vocalization, it means like voicing. Sorry for this. And with this being handed, let's go to the practical. Okay, so here it is, the FL Studio. I'm going to use FL keys for showing some stuff. I'm just going to use the concept I mentioned before in roadmap. I'm going to make it a little more quiet because my voice is not really loud actually. I have a bit micro. I want to write something in this scale, so let's go. First I'm going to try some cool chord and extensions. Extension to heaven. Anyways, let's use this chord. Let's voice it. Minecraft. I want to make it a little more higher. No, creates the tension. Also, you can check how the notes relationship just by making them higher and check what kind of interval they're forming. This can be pretty useful, I guess. No, this shit's too boring. So let's make the BPM a little higher. Okay, I want to loop this a little. So let's think about what I just did use. I used like inversions, arpeggio. Like the overall chord is going to sound like this. You can check what notes you don't like and just remove them. And it's always very important to check what kind of sound you're getting when all those notes are being played. Because I guess there are mirror when you're trying to change the timing itself when the sound itself is a poor sounding for you. Okay, so let's loop it. No, does it loop? Just repeat it. I guess I want to change the last note. Okay, now I want to use some. Okay, 6-step is going to sound good and just know that. No, there's two it's removing for me. Let's use this one. And I guess I want to go another step again. And this, for example, I forgot to enable this one. Okay, I want to create some actual transition. And let's think about what I did and how it actually looks like. When there are higher BPM, the phrase gets really, how do I say that? Short. So actually, let's say will be like just this and phrase like this. And two phrases give us a sentence. These sentences give us a period, but it feels like more one big sentence. And this is because of our BPM. If we like halve it in somewhere around this, it's going to give us the same live action. And it gives us only the motif, while the sound is the same. Very interesting. I guess once I've set this a little. I guess that's some little special. Okay, now let's apply some accents in velocity changes. can always change it whatever you want. This is an art. Okay, I like this sound much more. Let's place it here. Letters. Very interesting. Also, you probably heard of such a thing I like. Rule of the thumb that the less he goes, the less space you actually have. So you can place like a lot of notes here because you're just lesser the space. Like those are really low frequency, and the difference between notes will be like really low. While in the higher register, it's going to have much more space between notes, like in frequencies. A lot of people use trick like just copying this and placing it octave lower. Just with some alterations. Okay, I'm actually going to check if it did use just some of the parts I mentioned. Okay, it use harmony, motif, phrase, sentence, period. It's really stable because the difference between phrases almost is minimal, and so it's pleasing to listen. True, a lot of repetition is not really good either, so we're adding some changes, like in the rhythm, for example. We must push the composition to move forward and forward, never stopping. So our listener could be very captivated by our composition and keeps listening. It's very important to capture the listener attention through all the composition. Okay, I can make, I guess, articulations here. Also, the syncopation through, I guess it is a syncopation here. It's very popular thing actually to do when you're doing things like that, for example. Let me show it. I guess I just played it like in Tower of Fantasy. Or in our case, we're doing it much more. No, we're doing it the same. I really like this pattern. Yeah, so let's check this a little bit. Let's add some impacts in the ear. Don't forget that you can also push notes here and create very interesting movement here. And to get the rhythm. Yes, something around this. Inversions are very fun thing to do. You can still add the notes upon it. The problem is because of the volume of the piano, I'm not hearing it really good. I just need to add a little of, you know, notes and relationships here, and it will sound good, I guess, if I place notes upon this and create a very interesting harmony inside of those notes. Like we can just still use them a lot, still. No, that's not exactly the rhythm I get, but like little change. I really like the sound actually, but also let's make rhythm. True, I guess it will be much more easier if just added some other instrument and added it like here. Actually, let's make it staccato, like in strings. It will sound actually very interesting in my opinion. What about if you just place it like copying the notes that are currently playing here, but with some kind of interval? It could make very interesting results.
Place.
I'm not sure how it's going to sound in the end. I'm going to copy this then. I would wanted to copy this slot. Let's consider creating the intervals with notes below. And actually I was looking right now on the notes I was using. Let's see how it interacts with the completion below. It's actually really interesting.
I don't feel like this pattern. Let's change it.
And then just repeats this one.
Let's make it here.
The funny sound. Still very interesting, but let's make it like the pattern I mentioned before. Let's implement this and change, I guess, a little. I know this is very boring stuff, and this now reminds sound production challenge. I'm sorry about that. If you wanted some more, how do I say it, dynamic or explanatory part, where I just put images and learn something. No, that's not my style.
Very interesting actually.
If I place it here, it's going to create this kind of interval. It's very interesting. I guess just change the ending and it's going to sound so good. It's going to sound good when you change the ending.
Let's experiment with them.
Also, I forgot to change velocity. I guess I want it to be much less. Also, let's implement this here too. Also, I guess people like Tinky and all that stuff. I mean, all those people are actually just going to paste you how they're making already the complete kind of structure and chords and just playing them. I guess that's really useful when you're not actually know how to build all these kind of structures and I'm showing the actual process. I guess this is useful. I guess I want to raise it a little. Want to check how this is going to sound. And here I can implement other kind of like. And the last one, I guess I can just change it to another one too. So it's not repeat the same chord all over again. It's going to actually use, I guess, the 7 note. So I have the strong pull towards the tonic, I mean the first one. As the tonic. Yes. Okay, let's try something interesting here. What I can actually try to make here. Sure, what was the rhythm? Okay, it's pretty simple.
Okay, this one. Let's see how the sound actually.
No, that line is sound. True, I can just manually change the notes and it's going to sound much more better because this tool just moves them across the scale. Not exactly useful for creating or changing. This one port can be alterated. Okay, I guess Analysys Code came up with a little better idea than me. Anyways, then didn't have any idea what to write, so I hope this little was a little useful. As you can see, I tried to implement the pattern thinking, so we could make it much more easier to write. And our two sentences, well, if we count this as a sentence, I mean, are very similar to this one, but the next one is much more developed compared to the first. And if I was to write the next period, for example, I would use another motif, or even more, change this one. So let's get to the analysis. We're going to analyze the cinematic tracks and how part writing is being used there. Okay, so let's get to the analysis part. And as you can see, the previous part I didn't explain a lot, but the overall lesson I wanted you to give is how all those knowledge and concepts like harmony, knowledge of the composition structure merge into one skill of part writing. And this actually again relatable to the deconstruction because I did break the part writing into elements. So part writing is kind of category and it's still like the one skill that everyone have, but we can deconstruct it. That's the main point. I guess the one of the reasons why I didn't teach the exact theme, because first I'm not exactly absolutely proficient in each, and secondly there are a lot of small details and I don't know everything again, and you can learn this by yourself, which I guess is going to be much more better. There are a lot of things that intersect between each other when you start to think about that, and I want to keep things simple. Actually, let's talk about overall about the part writing and how we can actually learn it. And straight up my answer will be go and study music theory from the books no less, starting from the fundamental to the harmonic and then to the jazz theory. But one thing should understand that this is still an art. If you think about that, theory gives out the tools and the boundaries that we can push under certain circumstances, and we will know that this is actually going to work. There are a lot of interesting thoughts and concepts in that direction. Remember them all at once. Sure, this is possible. Also, just a magnificent thing will be buying an instrument so you could use your new gained knowledge and practice. It will take extra time to learn it, but in my opinion, this is absolutely worth it if you truly want to get down in the music and art. And let's get to the analysis. This is my composition I made. Was for CDR, that's Aurora theme, and as you can see, if you heard it, I was evolving the main motif across the whole composition. It starts right from it. I need to disable drums or this is going to be really bad. Hello. It was the drums. As you can see, it's the same as you, but having the changes is normal. And now I'm going to use this motif in the staccato. So I did it down. This is one of the techniques that you have to learn, is by using the one motif and then evolving it. The best example will be the same of the Game of Thrones. It uses the same skill. I'm just adding different elements to keep it different. Very interesting. And here it comes again. But it gives off another feeling, especially after this part. And now I'm going again to change it. As you can see, I changed its octave. And it's very interesting how it changes the sound. And that's how the texture affects the dynamics. Texture is basically how wide your composition is in terms of register, basically. Also, those, for example, are types of pattern like ostinato. That's also a pattern you have to learn, especially when you're trying to write cinematic music, because ostinato basically is the basis of most of cinematic tracks. Just a repeated motif, very stable one. You can still change it, but most of the time it's going to be stay around the same rhythm. Also, let's look at its structure. Here is the first one. Well, actually, this is the intro. It counts more like from here, actually. True, I did implement cello here because the first part is like a contrabalance, but the drums itself changes only right here. It's again about the stability, and after the spirit goes down, you can see it starts up another part where a lot of things changes, like the instruments playing. I know this is just a piano, but in real composition there is some other instruments. I guess that is more intuitively speaking concept, because you're also the listener and you can see the difference and pinpoint it for yourself. And when you're trying to analyze the track from the terms of hard writing, you have to look on how changes the composition in terms of periods, motifs, how often actually it changes, what techniques it uses. For example, like I was using the one wall motif through all the track, or something interesting that you could find in other ones. So it's up to you actually, because the notes you're going to make upon your analysis are being built upon your knowledge and your type of thinking. I just want you to see the patterns and how they change within a time, within the structure. Since it's going to make it much more easier to see what exactly is changing. True, this not can be really, how do I say that, easy when, for example, when you don't know the size of the composition, or when there are too many instruments that can not really give off what exactly is being used. This is mostly a problem of the electronic instruments. But anyways, I want to just give you a little guide how to analyze the tracks from the part writing. There are also other techniques, I guess, and you can, if you know them, you can leave them up in the comments. Let's get to the another part. The one of the things I want to talk also, well, I don't want this video to be a clickbait, since I did show all those cool examples that sound just magnificent, but how do you actually apply my roadmap to this? This is a good question, actually. The roadmap is giving you actual tools, but mostly those are from the theory, most of them, I guess, except pattern thinking. That is relatable and at the same time not relatable to music theory. And I want you to use deconstruction for this. Like, you can just pick the composition you really like from YouTube or game, anywhere, and start analyzing it, deconstruct it, according to the tools you have. Like I was doing, for example, with checking the construction, the patterns that were used in MIDI, and everything like that. And with tools you can apply actually workable tips for yourself that you want to implement in your own workflow. And this is what actually I want you to do. I hope this will be really helpful, so you could shape your own style, own tips. I won't push anything at you. As long as you can use it, as long as you can use this theory, you will be able to achieve results you want. Okay, so let's talk about a little more detailed stuff. Well, not detailed, I mean, as you probably already heard a lot, that you can start on baseline, or start from the melody itself, and all that, but actually I believe that's one much more easier way and much more simple will be doing a thing called implementing the melody in the chord. Like, you're just using the theory once again to make something very interesting. And when you don't really have an idea in your head, you just start experimenting. And with theory, it's much more easier because, once again, theory gives you the tools and boundaries you can push under certain circumstances. So you can do a lot of interesting things just by using theory alone. Without all that stuff that you could heard from YouTube, I guess it's just stereotypes and they're not very useful. That kind of understanding comes from theory, when you just get deep enough to understand it properly. In the commercial production, you don't have really to write very complicated parts for every instrument, because you're making an arrangement in the end. Like the whole composition full of instrument generators, samples, and everything like that, and there is no really a lot of importance in making each part sound very complicated. I guess it can only hurt your composition, because when you're putting a lot of instrument samples, it's all going to work as one whole thing. And I guess the only thing that really matters in the end is the result and not significance of each part. So keep things simple. True, this is not applicable for everyone, I know, but that's very relatable when it comes to cinematic kind of tracks. Most of time you're just using sections of instruments, use things like chords, sometimes ostinato, to make it epic sounding, percussion displays the accents in the rhythm, horns that's playing the lead and the main melody, choir maybe. So I guess you would want to keep things organized within one whole thing, then one each part. So that's, I guess, the end of my thoughts at this part. Okay, so, and here this final part, I want to talk about one interesting thing, and the final one is this video about part writing, is to think by yourself. I did use the deconstruction to complete my own structure of what is being music consisted of, what elements and categories it have, like part writing, sound design, composition, arrangement, and production. Like 4 categories. You can use my roadmap as you see it. Like you can describe the concept I talk about in different kind of way. And actually I would want you to comment it, to share your own knowledge upon those terms and how it could be used to other people, just like I did. I guess it's very useful to someday make a one big structure so I could navigate the skill and the whole thing you were learning. It really helps you to organize your knowledge and perhaps teach others. I'm not exactly very good at explaining, so I hope this was at least useful for someone. The video didn't contain a lot of very hard visuals, because the main idea was to share our own thoughts and knowledge. And I don't have really a lot of time for fancy footage. Feel free to comment the video on the own tips, what will you change and everything like that. So, see you in the next lesson.